All right. That's four, I think, unless my clock is ahead or something. Hello, everyone. Welcome into the stream. If you just as a preface as well, my if my setup looks a little different, it's because I am on a new computer. Um, so everything it might be a little bit different. I'm just changing my audio right now because it might be a little bit too loud. Hello, hello. Okay. So, just letting you know that I do have a different setup, so everything might look a little bit different, but that means that you will probably be able to see more of my functions. So that's great because you can see these windows now. Fantastic. Um, but yeah, everyone. Hello, welcome in. Um, so what we are doing today is we are drawing hands. So we are going over all of the basics of hands that we are, every artist hates hands. I quite like hands now that I've done them enough. But most artists hate hands. So we're going to be going over those, the basics, some of my tips. Keep in mind that I am also very stylized, so I like to stylize my hands a lot. But I will go over as many of the hard basics as I can. Um, but yeah, and if you didn't know, our growing community is filled with tons of art nerds, and we art nerds have to stick together. So if you're an art nerd too, be sure to check out the links in our social media in the description below and check out our website for our class offerings because we're not just a YouTube channel, we are an art school too. And if you'd like to support us so we can keep making free content, consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can get access to tons of perks like my working files, critique sessions, and a huge discount on our classes that have a limited amount of spots. So be sure to check those out before they are gone. All right. Let's see. Hello, hello, yay! Hi, hello, Devil Wafer, and hello, Alyssa. Welcome in to the stream. Hello, everyone. Oh, okay. I'm getting used to this new setup. I'm sorry. I have like two screens and everything looks so strange. Oh, it's so cool though. All right. Hands. Now, this is the title. I'll just call this. See, now you can see me changing my layer name. Fantastic. All right. All you need to do, by the way, is just double click and then a new window will pop up. And you can just change it. So now you can see me do it. And you could probably see my cursor too now. I don't know if you could see that last time, but now you can. Okay. Hands. Enough oogling at my my new setup. When it comes to hands, we want to, just like when we draw anything, we want to split them up into shapes. We want to think of shapes before we think of forms. Shapes are a little bit different than forms. We have videos on both of those on our channel that are both narrated and edited by me. So if you're not sick of my voice yet, you can check those out. But we want to think of everything in terms of shapes first before we do anything that is form related with our hands. So hold up your hand in front of you right now. Just make sure that all your fingers are together. Hold them up in front of you so your palm is facing towards you. Point to your palm for me. That is what is, whoa, that is usually what you would call your first plane, right? It works the same way with feet, but we'll get into that next week. So when we look at our palm, right, that entire palm is what you can call your plane, right? The plane of your hand. Oh, I forgot, all my settings are different because this is a different computer. That's fine. So the plane of your hand, you can kind of draw it as a trapezoid kind of shape, almost. Right? Almost like a teacup, actually. If you've ever had like a mug, one of those cute little mugs. It's kind of the same shape. Let me just rotate that because it's not quite, oops, what I want. There we go. Whoa, that's right, that's what that does. Okay. Sorry, messing around with settings because I forgot how everything works. So the plane of our hand is generally what we want to start with. I'm not going to do any poses for our hands just yet. I'm just going to draw the hand of itself. I really improved my art thanks to you last week's stream, so thank you. Of course! I'm so glad to hear that you're improving. Improvement is great. We're all continually improving. Nobody is a master. I find that everyone is constantly improving, so it's great to feel that improvement, though. We love it. Keep your hand held out in front of you if you're looking at it right now. take note of the heights of your different fingers, right? Every single finger has a different height, right? You'll notice that your middle finger is the tallest one, your pointer finger and your ring finger, right? Your pointer finger can also be called your index. That's the one that you use to point. So this one, say if our thumb is here, right? Our index finger and our ring finger are approximately the same height. Usually our ring finger might be a little bit taller. Our pinky is the shortest, and our thumb kind of stops either at the first joint of our index finger or at like the base of our index finger, right? But if you kind of trace the tops of your fingers, you'll notice that it kind of makes what I like to call the mountain, right? It's kind of shaped like a mountain, right? Because it's like a peak at one point and a little bit taller on the other, right? If you think of mountains, it's kind of the same deal, right? If you kind of want to make nice looking mountains, let's pretend. Mountain for the peak of your fingers, right? Oh, it's so great. Nothing is lagging. Oh my god, I love this. But yes, your mountains. So you can kind of cut this up into 4, right? Your middle finger being the tallest, index and ring being kind of the same height. Your ring finger might be a little bit taller, and your pinky will be the shortest thing. For shortest finger. Sorry, shortest thing, shortest finger. Yeah. You have trouble with the thumb the most, Devil Wafer. Yeah, I'll get into the thumb. Don't worry. Well, I'm just kind of showing the heights for all the fingers for now. Like if you just have a straight up palm, and then we'll talk more about joints when I get into another pose for the hand. Keep your hand still out in front of you. You'll notice that you have kind of poke around your palm for a second, right? You'll notice that the squishiest parts are directly under the fingers here. There's a section of fat that's kind of here, and a section of fat that's kind of here as well. Right, so these are kind of the lines that you might have in your hand. There's kind of a triangle in the middle. Hello, M. Basil. Welcome in. And this is generally what is connected to your thumb. Kind of pull it out a little bit. And then your thumb kind of stops around here. If you just have your hand up, like just straight, fingers all together, right? You can kind of continue out this little section of fat, right? It's very squishy. I think it's, I can never remember the name. Part of me is like, it's the thumb pad. That's not what the thumb pad is, because the thumb pad is just the bottom of your thumb. The squishy section of your hand that's closest to your thumb. Right, you can kind of continue it outwards, and then another rectangle for your thumb that kind of stops around this area. Of course, every single hand is different. I am referencing my own. I have very short fingers, even though I like to draw long fingers. So it might be a little bit different for you if you're holding out your hand, right? The best way to know if you're doing accurate, like, references your best friend, but you have hands, probably. If you're drawing, you probably have hands, right? You can use your own hands as reference. Another thing that I like to do, right across from me, like, obviously you can't see, I don't have a webcam. Right across from me, though, I have a mirror that I can look directly into, right? My desk is here, and then to my right, I'm pointing to my desk, you can't see me. But, like, my desk is, like, right here, right? If I am sitting, right, my desk is right here. I'm in my chair, my dual screens, right? And a mirror is right here. So I can just turn and look at my mirror, and I just have a constant full body reflection that I can look at, right? Perfect reference. It works so well. You don't have to take photos all the time. It's fantastic. I definitely recommend getting a mirror if you don't have one. Super, super helpful. So I've kind of talked about the lengths of all of your fingers, right, including the thumb. Right, but we haven't really gotten into the jointy bits and all those poses, right? This is just like the very, very basic. This is kind of how everything goes, all the different heights of your fingers, right? So let me write a lot of this down. Oh, Control D, there we go. So let me just write this down. This entire, if you are on our Discord channel as well, this entire file, the JPEG is all yours. You can keep it. But my working file is only available to Patreon members. So, our fingers, right? Middle finger is the tallest. Index and pointer. Index, pointer, and ring are approximately the same height. They're approximately the same. Pinky is the shortest. Thumb meets close to bottom of index. Right? So this is your index, middle, ring, pinky, thumb. Right? You can kind of remember the names for each of them. You can also call your index your pointer, right? Whatever you point with. Fun fact, actually, random fun fact. The reason why it's your ring finger, the reason why you put when you're getting married, the reason why your ring is on that specific on your, I think it's your right hand's finger, or right hand's ring finger, is because there's a vein that leads directly to your heart. So there you go. Now you know that. And as always as well, if you have any questions, if you want me to go over anything specifically, I can gladly do that for you. Just say it in the chat and I will go over it once I see it. I know this isn't about hands, but how do I duplicate a drawing? In MediBang, what you can use, you can take your lasso, whatever layer you're on, you can take your lasso, right? On your keyboard, hit Control C. Oh, no, not Control X. Hit Control C, Control V. It'll automatically make a new layer off to the side. You can hit Control D to deselect, and with that layer off to the side, now you have a second one that you can use. So that's kind of just how you duplicate anything. It's all with shortcuts on your keyboard. But yeah, hopefully that helps. Okay. Just a moment. We've talked about just the kind of the heights, so let's get into the actual drawings of each finger, because I know that people tend to struggle with that the most, because drawing fingers can be very, very tricky, especially when you want to get the right perspective in, right? And there's a couple of ways that people tend to draw the fingers of hands, right? Or just hands in general. No worries. There's a lot of different ways that people tend to draw hands, right? Because there's so many, like, different ways that people have tried to solve their problems when it comes to hands. So one of them is, well, obviously you want to think of them now in forms rather than with shapes, right? This is all rectangles and ovals and stuff like that. Let's think of more in forms now. So we're thinking more cubes and rectangular prisms and spheres and ovals, right? For me personally, I'm going to show you kind of the way that I do it first, and then we'll get into more of like what I've seen other people do. For me personally, I keep the plane kind of the same. If you've ever seen a flask, right, kind of the same shape as that. So like the plane of the hand, I think of like a very flat cylinder, right, like a flask. I mark off different circles for where I want my fingers to go, right? And I'll also mark off the fatty sections of my hand. Right, I tend to draw very long hands and very jointed fingers. So I tend to like to mark off the fatty sections first, as well as the areas where the fingers will come out of, along with the thumb. Right, so of course there's another extension of the thumb on this side, because if I'm thinking that this is where my pointer goes, then this is the middle and the ring and the pinky. But I'm always keeping in mind the different heights of each of my fingers. Right? So the thumb will obviously be the shortest finger on the side. Then it's the pinky that's the second shortest. These two will be this kind of equal height. And then our middle finger will be the longest one. Right? But I like to think of each of my fingers, my appendages, my phalanges, as beans. Right? Hold your hand out in front of you once again. If you bend your thumb, you'll notice that there's only one joint, your knuckle. There's only one knuckle. But there's a joint at the base of it, which is just what I'm going to call this, right? Your base circle over here. And then for each joint of your thumb, right, I kind of draw them as beans. So I got one, I got two. Right? I draw them as beans. The different segments of my fingers, right? It's the same for each finger, but the thumb tends to be the thickest because, you know, it's a thick appendage compared to the rest of your fingers. Right? Take note of all the different heights of your joints as well for your fingers. Alright, so these two tend to be the same height. These two actually are a little bit lower, so I drew them a little bit wrong. So these two tend to be a little bit lower. I have to constantly shift everything around. So the base of this finger, again, a bean, right? One bean. This one's a little bit taller. Two bean. This one's about the same height. Three bean. Pinky is the shortest. Four bean. Again, this is kind of my style of doing it. Everyone draws hands a little bit differently. And then I just continue to add on the beans, right? Next bean. But now I position them a little bit more. And then obviously our final joint will be the shortest bean. We want to overlap all of our beans as well when we draw each segment, each joint of the finger. I'm a beginner and this is nice. Great! I'm glad. I like to relate all of my things to food items. Well, not food items, but I wanna make sure that it's something you can relate it back to. Right, so beans. You can think of your finger joints as beans. Right, looks a little messy right now. Because we've just kind of overlapped all of our beans, right? Going in different positions, different joints. Right? But the number one thing we want to keep in mind every single time is to make sure that all of the different lengths are still according to this one, right? This finger should be the longest. These two should be approximately the same length, and this should be the smallest one. Right? And our thumb will always just remain on the side. I'm very jointy when it comes to my fingers, so it might be a little bit different for everyone. But now you can kind of erase the insides, each joint of your finger. Right. You don't have to leave these extreme kind of bean shapes there. I'm just kind of erasing so you can see all my shapes that I've left. Rather than erasing everything and then not being able to tell what I did afterwards when I save the JPEG. Right, and the number one thing that I see artists, like kind of people who struggle with hands and they can't figure them out, number one thing that I see a lot of them do is they don't draw their nails. Always draw in your nails. Your nails are what will make sure that your fingers are in perspective, right? You look at your fingers, right? They're more like cylinders. They're like sausages, right? I drew them as beans, but they're like sausages, right? So of course they're round, and your nails will curve to fit the shape of those sausages. Right? And they'll help reinforce your perspective for each finger, right? So you can they're a little bit flatter than like a regular cylinder, but they will curve around the shape of your fingers, right? You want to bring those nails back in so you can kind of reinforce all of those things, right? Question, do you draw with a mouse or a tablet? I draw with a tablet. I work with a Cintiq 13 HD. It is a used one and I've had it for years. But yeah, I love this tablet. It's kind of old, but works great. Ha, a lesson of what I struggle to draw. Yes, indeed. I'm guilty of not drawing nails. It's okay. I never used to, too. I started drawing nails when I was like a few years back, so don't worry. I haven't always drawn nails, but it helps so much when drawing your hands. For some reason, up until 2 weeks ago, I was terrible at drawing. I couldn't even draw a torso, but then for some reason, I'm reasonably good now, and I can draw a lot more than I could 2 weeks ago. It's probably because you've been working at it. The more you work at something, the better you get. Right? So for kind of the way that... so this is Jessie's technique. Right? Fingers. Drawn. Beans. Drawn like beans. Never forget fingernails. Never forget your nails. Let me make this a little bit smaller. Yeah, I'm still getting used to this whole new canvas size that I have to work with. Because my tablet is still very small, but it looks very large on the big screen next to me. I have 3 screens in front of me right now. My god. But it works great. I love this setup. So this is kind of my technique. Everything is very, very rounded. Some artists are very against that. I draw my fingers quite rounded. But I know that other people, so let me go over kind of what else I've seen. This is kind of the way that I taught myself. How we talked about it in college, though, when I went to class for it. How am I going to organize this? You know what? Let's just make it longer. Edit. Canvas size. Let's change this to 3,500. Sure. Is that big enough? No, it isn't. Let's do it again. Oh, you know what? No, I can just do this. Sorry, I'm trying to organize it at the same time, so then I can save it the same way. So this is kind of the way that I would do hands. Right? Hands and fingers. Hello, I hope I'm not late. You're not too late. We've just been talking about hands. We've gone over the different heights for all of the fingers, and we've gone over kind of the way that I would draw hands. We're gonna go over the way that I was technically taught to do it. Now, so you haven't missed too much, don't worry. We haven't gotten into the fun part yet. This is all the theory. This next section, though, is kind of how I would draw, or how I was taught to draw them, right? And I was taught to draw every single element of the hand as more of in a very geometric sense, rather than kind of rounded, like beans and whatever. I was taught to kind of draw everything as if it was a rectangular prism, or with rectangles, right? Which is also a really, really fun technique. I quite like the look of it. But I'm better with this. Hi! Hey, Em! Welcome in! Isn't it, like, ultra late for you? I don't... But welcome in. We're doing hands. Hello. So how I was taught technically in college how to draw the planes of the hands was with rectangular prisms. So instead of that flask shape for the plane of the hand, we were given these kind of rectangular prisms to work with for the base. Split this up into 4 different sections, though this would be angled a little bit more because the fingers are a different length. I'm gonna go in a few minutes. It's almost 2 a.m. Yeah, you should probably sleep. Don't be a night owl like me. It's not good for you, technically. But I'm glad you could pop in. Yes, yes. Alright, so each finger then, instead of drawing them as, or each joint, instead of drawing them as the beans that I drew them as, you would draw them as rectangular prisms. Same heights, though. It is, no matter which technique you are using, it is the same lengths. Same lengths. Right? I find this one a little bit trickier to use, but it works just the same. Right? So your joints are approximately the same directions from each other. This one works a little bit better This one works a little bit better if you're struggling with the perspective of your fingers, because now you have like very concrete shapes to work with in order to help with that. Let's do different positions so it's a little bit easier for me to draw. Right, so now it's like you're breaking it up into different blocks, like building blocks almost. So like French fries. Yeah, that's the one. They're like French fries. Delicious. Right, you're drawing them each as rectangular prisms now. Did you miss me? Yes, we missed you, Em. We missed you for the past 2 streams. It's getting a little messy, so it's kind of hard to see. I'm trying to do it so it's not extremely messy. I'm gonna just have to erase a bunch of stuff. Don't mind me talking to myself. I'm thinking out loud. Again, this isn't my favorite technique, so I'm not like a master at it. But this is kind of the way that I've seen it taught a lot more. A lot of more realistic artists have always said to draw your joints as like prisms rather than like this is me skipping steps. My my technique is skipping steps. Is it more helpful to draw hands with 3D shapes? I've been drawing hands with 2D shapes like a elongated pentagon. Perhaps it helps with drawing hands in different angles. You answered your own question. It depends on how you're thinking of drawing your hands. For me, I think of all of these automatically in 3D, so it's like I don't really have to work with that. But if I were to kind of highlight it a different way, then technically these are still cylinders, right? They're just drawn without all the extra steps, right? Because these are still like, it helps with foreshortening. Your nails are definitely like a really good way to help with that foreshortening, because foreshortening fingers is some of the hardest stuff that you have to do. But think of, if you take your hand, you take like a washable marker, non-toxic washable marker, and draw rings all over all your fingers, or you take a glove, like a skin-tight glove, and you draw rings all over those, you can kind of see how those 3-dimensional shapes work. So if you're just drawing them kind of like facing forwards and whatever, the 3-dimensionality doesn't matter quite as much, but if it is in a difficult pose, then it absolutely matters. Yes, yes. Are you going to do more of these anatomy streams and videos? Yes. So next week is feet, and the week after is and then the month after that is perspective. So we're going to be doing perspective for 4 weeks in a row. So it's going to be 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, and then composition. So we're going to be talking about that for the next 4 weeks after these like back to the basics ones. All right, bye. Bye, Em. Thanks for joining. Looks a little like fries. Yeah, we're talking about fries. Such a good tip. Thank you, Gio. Welcome in, Gio. Gio is one of our lovely admins at the studio. Oh, heavens. What color did I use? Close enough. So now it's more geometric, right? It's not quite, geometric. Yeah, a little bit like fries. But yeah, welcome in, everyone. We're talking about a more geometric way to think, because everyone thinks differently when we do art, right? Some people think of it more geometrically, some people think of it more organically. I tend to be a mix of both, but depending on what I'm drawing, I think differently. So for hands, I'm a little more organic, but for bodies, I'm more geometric. It's very strange. Good day. Hello, Lennox. Welcome back in. But yeah, so this one's more geometric. I'm not fantastic at this one, but it is what it is. Everyone learns a little bit differently. Let me just erase a little bit so it's a little bit clearer. It's not quite as messy. But it is basically just thinking of all your different segments as more of a geometric, like harsh geometric shape rather than like the beans that I've been talking about. So this is beans, this is French fries. Yeah, that's the difference. So my technique is more with beans, and more common techniques I've seen are more with French fries. Some people just jump straight into the shapes. They don't think of more of this 3D sense. I can show you kind of the way that I've seen some friends draw their hands instead. I'm showing you a bunch of different techniques because there's a lot of ways that people have tried to make hands easy for themselves. Technically, there is no 100% like foolproof way of drawing hands, just because everyone does it differently. Everyone's brain works differently, right? Some people have similar working brains, and that's why we have some techniques that work for other people and some that don't. So I'm trying to show a few of those so then you can kind of pick one that works best for you. Are you gonna do hair for May? Ooh, a hair stream. That's one that we forgot to put in. I'll talk about it. We'll try to see if we can do a hair stream soon. But yes, welcome in everyone. Welcome into all the new people that I've seen. I realized we forgot to talk about the hair. I guess we'll do hair one day. I love teaching hair. Sure. I feel like we had a hair stream in the past. Maybe we didn't. I'm probably just dumb. So this is geometric technique. So let's turn down my brush size G. And for those of you who are just joining in, if the stream looks a little bit different, it's because I got a new computer set up. So everything might look a bit strange. And now you can see all the different windows that pop up if I go up to the top or if I change my layer name or something. So now you can see those. Great, right? Fantastic. I have a PC. It looks like a monolith, so I named it the monolith. Yeah, very on brand for me. Geometric technique. Fingers. Drawn like fries. More prisms. How did my handwriting suddenly get 20 times messier? Geometric technique. If you're wondering, this is not how I normally write. Like, this is how normally write. Because I write in cursive mostly, but like that doesn't really translate very well because I know a lot of people don't read cursive. So I'm going to be sticking to my print, but it is a little bit messy for what I'd normally like. Okay. So that is the top of the hour. So what that means is that we are going to do a bit of a plug. So if you didn't know, we are not only a we're not only a YouTube channel, we are also a art school. So if you would like to check out all of our classes, you can check them out in the links down below. And if you didn't know as well, this entire sheet that I am drawing will be available on our Discord for you to download, which you can download as a JPEG. It is yours once this whole stream is over. You can download it, keep it, reference it, do whatever you want with it. But if you would like my working files, you are going to have to sign up to our Patreon. So that's where we will be putting in all of our working files and all of the extra perks, and sometimes we have critique days which you can participate in as long as you are one of our Patreon members, and we also have discounts on our classes which are in limited number on our Patreon, so be sure to check those out before they are gone. So let's get back into hands. Now, I used to write in cursive, but it all went downhill after 3rd grade. I was the only one who kept writing in cursive after 3rd grade. So everyone else stopped, and I was like, nah, I like the way this looks. I'm going to keep doing it. Just to be extra. Like the extra person I am. Alright. So again, like, some people like to really break it down. Like, I like to break it down into the beans. Some people like to break it down into geometry. Other people don't do that, and they stick very, very harshly to their shapes. Like their rectangles and everything and stuff like that, right? So how I've also seen it done is just with the shapes, right? I'm not really gonna go over this one too much because it can be kind of confusing. Like, I can do it automatically. It's a little bit hard to teach, though. Where people draw all their fingers. This is a very thin hands, I find as well. Right, so people tend to draw all their fingers. It's kind of a mix between what I like, my technique, and the geometric technique, where all the fingers are very, very geometrically closed off. Very long and thin as well. These are more like my brother's fingers. If this is if this is what my whoopsies. If this is what my hand looks like, this is what my brother's hand looks like. My brother has very thin, long hands. He calls them his alien hands because they are very strange and alien-like. So yeah, drawing every single joint more as rectangles right? Some people love this technique, like the very hard-edged fingers. Is it wrong? No, but it's just not the one that I tend to use all the time. Hi, hello Scarlett, welcome in. Glad to have you here. So this is the more of the hard shape technique. Rectangles and squares. I hope you guys can't hear my brother. He's in the room over and he's kind of shouting. I cut my wrist like 6 years ago, and since then, my handwriting is gone. Ooga, I feel. I can't kill what's already dead. My handwriting never was good. I understand. Some people just have messier handwriting. It's okay. I have pretty messy print as well, so it's okay. You don't have to worry. Hard shape technique. So mainly uses rectangles and squares. Flat fingertips. Okay. So that's kind of what I wanted to go over in terms of just the very hard basics of hands, right? There's a lot of different ways that you can kind of talk about, like, the different techniques you can use. I'm gonna make this longer again. Canvas size. There you go. Now you can see all my windows too. Let's make this. See if that helps a little bit. No. Okay, let's do it again. It's kind of irritating because I have to do that every single time. Unless if there's like another technique that I just don't know. There probably is, and I just got lazy and didn't look it up. So this is the hard shape technique. Again, I'm just organizing everything ahead of time, so it's a little bit easier to scan through once I upload it to Discord. English is hard, me. Hard basics is so fitting. Yeah, I suppose so. I've been gone for a while. Feels good to be back. Hello! Welcome back. I'm glad to have you back. Alright. So let's move on to variety with hands. Now the thing with hands, look at your hand, look at your friend's hand, look at your sibling's hand. If you have siblings, look at your parents' hand, your guardian's hand, your grandparents' hands, right? None of them look the same. That's the thing with hands. Everybody's hands look different, right? It's the same with faces, same with bodies, right? There's no such thing as everybody's hands look similar, not everyone's bodies look similar, right? We want to get over same face syndrome, we want to get over same body syndrome as much as we want to get over same hand syndrome, right? So this one I can teach, though, because there's not too many that I really wanted to go over that are completely different. Right, so the ones that I've been drawing are kind of the hands of, like, a young adult. What happened to my color? Did it go back to... What happened there? Oh, well. Right? So the ones that I've been kind of drawing is, like, young adults' hands, teenagers, around there. Right? But let's talk about different ages, right? Baby hands. Let's talk about baby hands. Baby hands. I love drawing baby hands because baby hands are like, you don't have to worry about joints quite as much. Baby hands are quite easy. Start with a circle. Right? And then just one bean for each joint. One bean for each finger. It's almost like Baymax's hands. Right? Baby hands are very squishy. If you look up baby hands, they're very squishy and small. Very cute. Of course, they have joints, but they're very, very tiny. And most of the time, like, I don't tend to worry about them. The best thing about baby hands as well is you can kind of draw, you can use this exact same technique for chibis. Chibis, you draw their hands like baby hands. Very, very small, very, very cute. But the lengths are exactly the same. So know that your middle finger should be your tallest. Then these two should be approximately the same length. And then your pinky should be the shortest. Right? I'm going to keep reiterating that so it gets stuck in your brain. Baby hands are very, very small, very, very cute. Thanks. No worries. Very, very small and squishy. I love them. So small. Right, so baby hands are very, very cute. What's the name of the program that you are using? This is MediBang Paint Pro. So it is a free program that you are able to download onto tablets and phones and stuff like that, but I'm using it on a computer. Unfortunately, I don't know too much about the tablet version, but I can do my best to help with the with the desktop version. I love drawing chibis. I'm honestly not much of a chibi person. I much prefer to just draw full body people. They are cute though. I've had to teach chibis a few times in classes. I've had quite a few students who are like, I don't know how to draw chibis, and it's like I have to go over the lesson again, but it's okay. Everybody's learning. Like draw cool anime poses, but they're chibi. It's really funny to me. Yeah. Right, so baby hands. These these are like no. Now the fingers are like jujubes. Right, if adult hand finger joints are like beans, baby hands joints are like jujubes. Right, very tiny, very very tiny. It's the same thing if you're drawing like a fist. Right, each of the little joints. Very small and squishy because babies still got a lot of that baby fat, right? And they're very squishy. So you can draw a lot of their joints as just very round jelly beans and jujubes. I'm relating every aspect of hands back to food, apparently. So let me write that down. Let me write that down, baby hands. Very small. Joints like jujubes. Right? Jujubes are gummies. If you've never seen a jujube before, I'm gonna say something kind of controversial. I don't like jujubes that much. I always get flack whenever I say that. Yeah, baby hands are very small. Joints kind of like jujubes. Can also be used. Can be used for chibis. Right? Very, very small and squishy. So we've already kind of gone over young adult hands, so I don't really want to go over it again. So let's go over elders. Elders are great. As a horror artist, I love to use elders' hands because a lot of them tend to be a little bit creepier because they're very, very jointed. Elder hands. Right, and elders' hands is, even though this is technically my overall technique, I switch between them depending on what I'm drawing, right? So this technique is what I use mostly for young adults and for babies and all that. This is what I tend to use if I'm drawing elders. Right? Because when it comes to drawing anything elderly, right, the skin gets pulled very taut against their hands. I'm going to draw this hand from the back as well, just so you can kind of see the difference a little bit. Right, so I like to elongate the plane of the hands. I'm going to draw the back of the hand first, and then I'll draw the palm a little bit more. You notice it's a little bit different for me when I draw each joint. Now it's like very, very thin. Again, very, very general. This isn't what absolutely every elder's hand looks like. This should be shorter. But it's a technique you can use. Right, very, very jointy. Off topic, but what keys do you press to make a selected area smaller and change its size? You can hit Control T, and that'll turn up your controls for manipulating size and whatnot. It's the same for every program. Every digital art program that you use, you can hit Control T. You should be able to manipulate whatever is in your selected area. or if you don't select a specific thing with your lasso. So if you just don't select anything with the lasso and you hit Control T, it's going to manipulate the entire layer. But if you select with the lasso and then hit Control T, then it'll bring up this little menu. You should be able to see everything. Control D is to deselect and all that. Okay. So let me erase a few of these extra bits. When you have your wrist as well, when you're drawing your hand, look at your wrist for a second, and point your hand a little bit, either so it's like, so it's flat with your arms. If you raise your entire arm up, make sure that your hand is flat with your arm and look at it on its side. You'll notice there's a little bump on your wrist, right? If you have your wrist, your hand goes a little bit down like this. I tend to exaggerate it, but your hand goes a little bit down like that, right? This is your wrist bone. Your arm does not go perfectly in line with your hand. That's far too flat, right? Never forget your wrist bone. Your wrist bone is always there. You should always include it. I like to exaggerate it, but never forget it there. You kind of want to have it in there, right? So you can always have your wrist, especially with elders because they're very, very bony. A lot of them tend to be quite bony around their joints and stuff. Same with your wrist creases. If you take your hand now and fold it downwards, so it kind of makes an L with your arm, like downwards, you'll notice that there is now some skin creases there, and you want to include those too. Oh, I didn't know that. It's okay. Yeah, it's a little bit more advanced. These are like the nitpicky things you learn as you get more advanced with art. Yesterday I was drawing my OCs, and OMG, it's really weird, the hands, bro. He's holding a cigarette, and it looked like, can't describe it, OMG, so I erased. I understand. I too was drawing OCs last night to get used to this setup, and apparently I'm still not used to it. So let me talk about the bit of the back of the hands now. Take your hand and ball it into a fist. You'll notice that your knuckles get very pronounced. And if you kind of touch the back of your hand, you can feel those joints going towards your wrist, right? If you actually look at the skeleton of a hand, you'll kind of physically see that they do connect as like these 4 rods that go towards your wrist bone, right? With elders, you can really pronounce that out some more, right? With the older you get, the more extreme this gets. Same with very masculine hands tend to be a little bit more veiny. B, they tend to show these kind of tendons more. You can also exaggerate your joints a little bit more when they're elderly. Right, so really add on more of those knuckles and the knuckle creases. Right? Every section of your body will age with you. Right? You don't want to be drawing perfectly young hands on an elder. Right? You want more of those skin-taut, pulled hands. Very jointy. I ignore it when I don't feel like wrist bones. I wouldn't ignore it. Generally, your wrist bones are pretty important, especially if you want to make something look a little more convincing. The only times that I'd say you can ignore it is if you're drawing a chibi. Even then, I tend to add it in. Or babies, because I guess babies have a lot more fat where you don't really see the wrist bone. But especially with elders, more creaky looking fingers. I would generally add it back in. So with elder hands, right, you can add on some spots. Because they tend to get sunspots as you get older. Hands, one thing I struggle with. Ah, hello. Welcome in, Senna. Inner Magic is I think that's him. Unless that's not you. Oh no, that is you. Hello, welcome in. Sorry, I had to really peek close at the avatar there. Welcome in. Glad you could join. So with Elder Hands, you can kind of... Let's talk a little bit about that. Tend to be very jointy. Draw in extra wrinkles. It's me. Well, yeah. Welcome in. Sent as a college friend of mine. Drawn extra wrinkles, tendons, exaggerated tendons. I didn't spell that right, I don't think. I'll just put an extra tendons. More geometric, generally. This is very, very general. Right? Not always concrete, but it does tend to be like that. Right? Wrinkles, extra tendons, more geometric, sunspots. Which elders tend to get. Right? If you could Google elderly hands, you'll notice they have some spots around their face or their hands or whatever. Those tend to pop up more as you get older. Younger the hands are, the more squishy. Elderly, a lot more bony. I need to get better at them. Yeah, I understand. Me too. Hello again. Welcome in, Flygon. Glad to have you in. So far, we're almost at an hour, so we're almost at halfway through the stream. So we're almost done with the very, very general basics, right? So right now we've talked about the different heights of our fingers, right? So the middle finger is the tallest, index pointer and the ring are approximately the same. The pinky is the shortest and the thumb meets close to the bottom of the index. So it's a little bit above or slightly, so it's a little bit above the bottom of the index or midway through the first joint of the index. We've talked a bit about my technique, so the finger joints are drawn like beans, and you should never forget your nails. The more geometric technique is they're drawn kind of like french fries, and then the hard shape technique is mostly just rectangles and squares. And then I kind of bounce back and forth between them, depending on, depending on who I'm drawing, right? So baby hands, I tend to meld more with my own technique. With elderly hands, I tend to meld more with the hard shape technique. So it's different depending on what I do. Oop, I just hit my computer. Great job. So these are kind of the very, very harsh basics of hands, right? All the different heights, all the different shapes that you can use when you draw them, everything like that. So let's get into the more fun part, right? Of just drawing hands in general, right? There's lots of different kinds of hands you can do. I guess for the final kind of basics, these aren't franchise hand, perfect, thank you. I guess they're not really basics. This is more for style points now. Let's draw monster hands. Now, monster hands, that's a very broad term, because there are lots of different monsters that you can draw. Right? For me, though, if we're doing horror hands, very, very similar to Elder's hands. Right, but monster hands are really fun because you can kind of mess around with the anatomy more. You can really, really exaggerate anatomy more, and you can kind of disregard a lot of things that you know about hands, right? Add on extra fingers, add on extra joints, stuff like that. Let's talk a bit about monster hands. So, same kind of deal. One of my favorite things is to add on an extra joint and to add on an extra finger. I very much like Uncanny Valley, so then what that means is, like, almost human, but not quite. Alright, so here's me kind of mixing in my technique with something else. Alright, so make the joints very, very long, adding an extra fingers, stuff like that. The number one thing, if you're drawing any kind of hand, though, is to start off with the base of the finger and kind of mark off where those go. That's the number one kind of point that I have that I should have talked about earlier, but I'm going to say it now, right? It's kind of mark off the base of the finger first, and then move on from there. So again, I like to exaggerate kind of the joints that I've been given. Or the joints that I've given myself extra joints as well. So instead of just 2 in the finger, now there's 3. And then my nails, which I've made very, very long. Another rule of horror, if you want it, is flat fingernails tend to be a little bit freakier than sharp fingernails. If you ever wanted to draw, my number one rule for horror is, like, the closer you can make it to a human without it being human, the scarier it tends to be. There are very unsettling things and very small little details that you can do to make things scarier. And also note, back on the topic of hands, with your nails will always tend to curve downwards, right? They will most likely, your very natural nails, not your, like, not acrylic nails, because acrylic nails, they tend to like to make very flat. But your very natural growing nails will tend to curve downwards. And they also tend to curve inwards, right? So if you have your finger, right, they tend to curve a little bit downwards and also curve inwards like that. Depending on the person, your nail might curve more, your nail might curve less. But in general, the very natural nail will curve downwards like that. I'm going to move this up to the other side. So let's move all of this down. Oh, I should have put all of this here too. Nails curve. Right? So make sure that you curve your nails when you're doing that. And of course, this is just kind of my favorite way to do monster hands. There are lots of different monster hands. You can make them kind of more reptilian, or you can make them a little more, like, animalistic and stuff like that. I just tend to like very uncanny valley horror. Those hands, yeah. Very much like hands. Very lengthy, indeed. Very much like, streamers. Like party streamers, party favors. Very complex hands. I like to have very complex hands. Spoopy hands, indeed. There's a lot of different ways you can go with horror. There's, like, actual horror, a more cool horror. Less is more when it comes to horror. So if you explain too much with your horror, it tends to get kind of boring and turn more into the cool side of horror rather than the scary. The less you have explained, the better, I find. The more subtle you make things, the better. But finding that balance can be tricky. Especially because what scares people can be different for everyone. Or is different for everyone. Right, with your monster hands, everything is at a weird angle right now because I have gotten comfortable in my chair and now everything is strange. Monster hands. Very jointy. Disregard a lot of human anatomy. How would you deal with amputated hands, or like if a thumb was replaced with a prosthetic? That would entail you drawing the entire mechanism that would attach onto your hand, because a lot of the times it attaches to like your entire wrist and the rest of your hand, right? So it kind of ties around and it reads how your joint works at the base of it. I actually don't have much experience drawing prosthetics, so my best piece of advice would just be to look up references and like kind of watch how it works with video. Especially with prosthetics, watching a video is very, very important with how it works. Because like more mechanical things, you have to understand how it works in order to draw it better. That's why I hate vehicles. But yeah, with prosthetics, it's like you gotta kind of understand how it works in order to get an understanding of not me to kind of get an understanding of how that works. Disregard a lot of human anatomy. Uncanny Valley tends to be my favorite sort of horror aspect. Uncanny Valley can be very, very creepy, though. So, like, if you're not cool with creepiness, then don't look up Uncanny Valley. Thanks. No worries. I have to get good at skeleton hands, the subtle creepy hands. Skeleton hands are just, like, the actual skeleton of a hand, and that one's just going to take a lot of references. For me personally, I've never done a skeleton drawing, just because I've never had the need to. So I just kind of like learn on my own. But yeah, okay, and that is the top of the hour, and what that means is that it is time to talk a little bit about our studio, because not only are we a YouTube channel, but we are also a online art school. So if you would like to check us out and all of the classes that we have to offer, check out the link in the description for our website, where you can check out all of our different classes that we offer. I am one of the teachers, as well as some of the others that were in chat previously, and Alyssa, who is behind the main canvas channel right now. And if you would like to have this file afterwards, all these different hands that I have drawn so far, then you are going to want to check out our Discord and the rest of our social medias, where this will be posted online, but it will be posted onto Discord, the JPEG will, where you can download it, keep it, it's all yours. All those links are also in the description below, so you can check those out. But if you would like my working file, you are going to have to sign up to our Patreon, and our Patreon is where all my working files are, and it is where you can get critiques, and we can have critique days. Which will be offered once you actually join the Patreon. Only the Patreon members will have access to that. And there is also discounts on all of our classes on Patreon to one of the tiers, but there is a limited amount of spots, so make sure that you get that before they are gone. So, let's go. You want to ask about that? You want to ask about which part? Okay, so I've kind of gone over a lot of different basics of hands. So let's get into the fun section now with an hour remaining. Let's make this... Oops. Don't edit, canvas size. Thanks. Definitely won't pick art as a full-on hobby, but it's nice knowing these tips. It's not for everyone. Don't worry. Hobby or career. Hobbyists tend to have a lot more fun because they can just disregard everything that I've talked about. But for a career, art is definitely hard. It's not for everyone, so don't worry about that. Let me just make a new thing now. Because there's a lot of things to worry about if you are, like, really doing art as a career, but as a hobby, honestly, you don't have to listen to anything I'm talking about. Like, hobbyists tend to do art because they find it fun, and you don't have to be good at it. Just do whatever you want, you know? Talent and skill isn't required to have fun. So, if it's just a hobby, go for it. It's a little bit trickier if you want to do it as like a career, because then it's like you do kind of have to focus on these things mainly. Oh no, mainly just because it can be kind of tough. Excuse him, what? Sorry, I want to try to move these. Because now you have an audience to worry about, and people are going to be kind of picky about that stuff. But if it's just a hobby, just don't listen to anything I'm saying. Do what you want. All the hands. How does payment of classes work? We have to pay monthly or per class. That one you're gonna have to bring up to admin. I actually don't know how it works. I'm not admin. I'm just one of the teachers. So you can check all of that out on the website. If you have any questions, you can email admin about it. Unfortunately, a stream chat is not where you ask. So you might want to just email us, ask questions, or test it out onto the site yourself. Because there's a lot of different nuances that I don't know. When you do art as a career, you have people judging. Yes, exactly. That's why you kind of got to know your stuff when you're there. Can I upload my horror hand into your Discord? Of course. Upload all of the things that you've drawn in this stream to our Discord. We love to see it. Oh, there you go. Wayne Canvas has replied. So because there's an hour left, well, I guess more exact, there's about 54 minutes left. I'm going to start taking requests, and what that means is I'm going to start taking requests for different hands that you guys want to see, different poses, different hand poses, sorry. So if you have any poses that you'd like hands to see in a specific age, or a specific kind of hand that you would like to see, drop it in the chat, and I'll gladly do that for you. So if you have any poses, anything that's specific that you would like me to draw in terms of like what a hand is doing, let me know and I'll do that. For now, I think the number one thing that a lot of people tend to struggle with is hand drawing, is a finger, hands holding a pencil. Hands holding a pencil. Draw a hand with an eye in the middle. Ooh, so kind of like the Pan's Labyrinth. Okay, never mind. I'll start with that one because that sounds fun. So kind of a Pan's Labyrinth kind of a hand. Real extreme foreshortening, I can do that too. A V pose on a normal hand. I'm not too sure what that means. You're gonna have to elaborate. And holding a cigarette, I can do that. Holding a cigarette's very similar to holding a pencil a lot of the time, so I can do that too. Hand with an eye in the middle, I can definitely do. That's a very Pan's Labyrinth kind of thing. I've never actually watched that movie, but I love Guillermo del Toro. He's a great director. It's very monstery. The thing how I would do that is like I would kind of get the hand to be within the folds, or the eye to be the folds of the hand. Pencils are tough too. Yes, they are. Like a peace sign. Oh, I love doing peace signs. I can do that one too. Yeah, hands don't tend to take me very long, so I can do a bunch of requests if you guys have them. 1940 cigarette. Oh, the long one? I love drawing those. Yeah, sure. The super long ones. Those are actually extensions. You can still buy them today. Don't smoke. Don't do it. If you're just illustrating someone doing it, yeah, sure, but like don't do it. It's not good for your lungs. I should have told my brother to. I hope you can't hear him shouting. Google up. It's when the index and middle finger are parted to resemble. Oh, the Star Trek symbol. the Star Trek. What Spock and the other the other Vulcans do to say peace be with you. Yeah, I know that. You should have just said it's the Star Trek one. Yeah, I can do that. That's not too hard. It's just the hand playing a piano. Ooh, pianos are hard too. I can do that as well. Yeah, it's the Star Trek hand pose. Yeah, we do that all the time. I come from a nerdy family, and we're a nerdy studio, so... Alien hands. Alien hands! You're gonna have to be more specific than that, because then I'm gonna go into what I think an alien looks like. Pull or the handle of a sword. I can do that too. And welcome in, Emma. Welcome to the stream. Wow, you're like, you're midway through the stream. That's earlier than usual. Welcome. My lungs do be clean. Yeah, same. It's better to have clean hands. And if you're actually seriously looking to draw an eye in the middle of a hand, I would recommend actually, like, following the creases of a hand. It helps it feel a little more natural. Oh, sorry, I wasn't requesting anything. Okay, that's fine. That's real, but yeah, I can just. You requested really extreme foreshortening earlier, so I can do that. I'm going to need to pull up a reference for that too, though. References are always valid. You're never cheating if you're using a reference. Just make sure that you're not copying. You have trouble creasing your hands. Yeah, my biggest piece of advice would be to, like, look at your own hands, because every hand has creases. Alright, I kind of divided it up into 3 sections here, or here, right? It's like you have your main pad, which is underneath all your fingers, right? So you have this main kind of oval that goes underneath all your fingers. You have a main kind of squishy section that goes with your thumb, and then you have another main squishy section that connects to your pinky on the side of your hand. So it kind of forms like a upside down triangle in the center of your hand. Oh, it looks so cool. Thank you. Hand with long nails. Hello, Jaran. Jaran is one of our lovely designers. And yes, I can do that too. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to write all these down. But yeah, hands don't take me too long, so I could probably do all of these. This finger's a little bit wacky. Actually, these both are a little bit wacky. These would actually curve a little bit more inwards, I think. Yes, Sharon is one of our lovely designers. If you've ever seen the thumbnails for the streams, those are what she does. So she has done every single thumbnail for us. So say thank you to Jaron, for all of our YouTube thumbnails. Either she's done all of them or the very vast majority of them. So. But yeah, fold the eye into the creases of the hand and it'll give it this more natural kind of feel. Okay, what was the next one? Hang on. See, they're quite quick. I'll only choose a couple to actually render out. And you guys can pick which ones you want to render out. Or you want me to render out. Heavens, let's scroll back up in the chat. Eye in the middle. Extreme foreshortening. Okay, so that was the next one. Oh, you know what? Our lovely... Where did it go? There it is. Our lovely studio director, Faye, has given us a ton of hand references that we can use. Let me just save one of these. I think she posted it into the actual Discord that you guys can access. So, allow me to just save this real quick. Stream. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to reference it off screen. Did you guys already do eye anatomy? Yes, we did. It was one of the... It was a couple weeks ago we did our eyes. Hang on, I'm trying to figure out how I would do this. Okay, I think I got it. Alright. What happened? Alright, so I'm kind of referencing the handoff screen, so you guys can't see it. But, unfortunately, because I just realized that, because I'm sharing my entire thing, you're going to see my files, and I don't want that to happen. But yeah, yes, we have done eye anatomy already. I've only done the recent one, starting from form. Okay, well that's fine. You've still done a lot of our hands, our thumbnails. So this one has all of the fingers pointing directly at us, and this is one of those poses where you're gonna really want to pay attention to your 3D forms. So I'm really looking at that. And this time, I'm really going to draw every single segment of my finger. Oh. As a cylinder. Right? And then always keeping my fingernails in mind, which will help with the convincingness of the foreshortening. Again, mark off every segment of finger. I think Faye drew this one yesterday too. There is a little bit of space between each finger. So you want to make sure that you include that. But you notice how every single curve of every single joint, I am keeping the same curve. Like I'm keeping the same amount of curve for each joint. Sorry, just give me a second. Okay. Every single joint keeps that same kind of curve, like it's going towards you, right? You really want to think of them as cylinders in this case. Especially with foreshortening, you really want to intensify the shape of the forms that you're using. And of course, constantly keeping my nails in there to reinforce that. Sorry if I go kind of silent, it's just me focusing. Because sometimes foreshortening can be tricky for me too. Foreshortening is tricky for me too. Can be, it is. Depending on what I'm doing. With hands, it is especially tricky. But I'm also trying to keep it clean so you guys can see what I'm doing. Or as clean as I can, anyway. It's hard because there's a lot of hand wrinkles here, too. Alright, so every finger you can kind of think of as a cylinder. As I keep mentioning, but it's the truth. And really keep those curves in mind. Right, every single curve is very, very important when it comes to a finger. It's hard to reference your own hand because my fingers are really thin. My fingers are quite thick. Very thick fingers. I've always liked drawing thinner hands, though, I've found. So before I go way too crazy with that, I'm just gonna leave it. It's not perfect, but it is what it is. I don't want to be here for a bajillion years. Hanshi will help me with for one of my more dramatic characters. He's a bunch of mechanical hands. He's always playing it to the crowd, so I'm glad I woke up to tune in. Yeah, great. I'm glad. Excusez-moi. Don't do that to me. Sorry, my tablet just disconnected for a second. Okay, so let me just close that then. What was the other one that was stream foreshortening? Oh, and the V. Yeah, the Star Trek V. I got a lot of monsters, so I've kind of learned how to draw monster hands. Monsters and demons. So I've kind of learned how to draw those. You'll notice that I tend to draw my thumb automatically is very much like a, kind of like a very long pentagon. Again, that's a very stylized thing on my end. This Star Trek kind of V is quite nice because it's very similar to just drawing your hand stock straight up. All that you really need to worry about is the lengths of your fingers. So a very quick way, if I don't have any joints, this is a very stylized way of drawing a hand. If I don't have any joints, then I just draw the entire, like if there's no bending, I just draw the entire finger as one long rectangle. Like if there's no real bending, you can just leave it like that. And then I always add in that extra extreme exaggeration of the wrist bone. Right, especially if you're more of a cartoonist, right? You can kind of disregard, like this is a little more realistic just because I was following a guide or not a guide, but a reference image very closely. With this one, it's more of like a off the top of my head, you know? Actually, a lot of these hands are off the top of my head. But with this one especially, it's very much like, yeah, it's the hand and it's pointing upwards, you know? It's quite nice. What was the next one after this? It was... Oh, and holding a cigarette. There's a lot of different ways that you can hold a cigarette or a cigar. The thing with that is, like, there's a lot of different poses you can do with it. Some people, like, pinch it between the two fingers, right? The index and the thumb. Some people hold it between the index and the middle, right? Depending on how much style you want to give the person. I'll do both. So for me, I tend to like the style aspect of it more. Of drawing an accented cigar. So I'm going to start with the wrist this time because now the hand is going to be in a different pose. I'm actually referencing my own hand right now as well so I can get it as accurate as possible. My fingernails are actually quite long. I'm drawing and using my hand as a reference. I just realized I had a paper cut. Oh dear. Yeah, sometimes we get paper cuts and we don't even realize that they're there, which sucks. Sometimes you realize it after you've, like, put liquid in it and it, like, hurts. Which like, double sucks. So with this one, it's kind of like you kind of got the two fingers out here. I'm doing the 1940s kind of cigarette hold first because I tend to be a fan of that. This is incorrect. This should be this direction. There we go. Yeah, I have claws. So I'm kind of referencing my own hands right now. Of course, don't forget your little wrist creases. If you don't know what one of these looks like, it's literally just a long straw. It's like a straw, and then it holds the thing at the end here. That's what it is. It's not like an extra long cigarette, it's just a holder for it. If you didn't know. So that's the fancy way of holding it. You cut your nails way too short, oof. Oh dear. You're gonna hurt your cuticles if you do that too much. I say that as I cut my toenails really short. Right, so in this case, it's very much like... Yeah, sometimes you won't see every single finger, and don't force it if you can't, right? A lot of the time, it's like, if your hand is just laying flat down, or if they're, like, curling in, you might not be able to see every single finger, and that's okay. Don't try to force it, right? Especially if you're looking at a reference and you can't see every single finger. Draw what you see, not what you think you see. That's the #1 rule when it comes to drawing anything from a reference, or if you're, like, life drawing or anything like that. Draw what you see, not what you think you see. So you want to make sure that you're drawing what's in front of you, not what, like, not what you think is in front of you, you know? Right, and then there's the very casual way. So this is, like, the fancy way, and then there's, like, the casual way of holding it. Which is still, like, in between the two fingers, but, like, sometimes it's, like, pinched. But, like, it is still generally between the two fingers. And in that case, this case, you see most of the fingers, but actually you don't see your pointer. I guess it depends on which angle you're drawing the hand from as well. So with this one, again, start with the plane of the hand. I always start with the thumb as well, for some reason. So I have the plane of the hand and then the thumb. And the little fatty bits. But I also always start with whatever finger is closest to me. So in this case, it's the pinky. So I'm going to start with the pinky and draw that one first. Have I drawn a fully clenched hand yet? No, I have not, so I can draw a fist. That's at the bottom of the list then, so I'll draw a fist soon. How do you draw a hand holding something like a spear? Emma, I believe, requested that. Yeah. Pole or handle of a sword. Yeah, so I'll do a sword and a spear then. That's very similar. So with this one, these two fingers are quite close to each other. And also don't try to force it if you can't see every aspect of the finger, right? You might not be able to see the very tip of, like, whatever section of the hand you're drawing, right? This plane is actually a little bit too out here. It should be more like that. Yeah. So you can only see the tip of this finger. And then there's just a cigarette here. Again, I do not condone smoking. If you're just illustrating it, I don't see why not, but don't smoke. Not good for you. Yeah, so number one rule, don't force it if you can't see certain sections of the hands. I am referencing off screen, as always, just so I can get it as accurate as possible for you guys. I don't want to mess up anything too much, because if I do, then I'm like, I don't want to have it, so it's like, oh, I drew this hand, but it's not accurate, and that's incorrect, so I'm like, I don't want to do that. Okay, what was next? Let's see. Yep. Cigarettes. I think it was a pencil? Pencils are tough. Hand-holding a pencil's really tough. It's probably one of the toughest ones. Hand-holding a pencil. Hand-holding pencils, yeah, it's really, really tough. That's one that I struggle with most of the time. And they also never have the right angle that I need. Whenever I need to draw a hand holding a pencil. So the thing with when someone's holding a pencil is that everyone holds pencils a little bit differently. For me, I'm just going to draw how my hand looks while I hold this pen that I am drawing. So it's like a hand holding. It's like a pencilception right now. So I'm drawing my hand right now as I draw. So what that looks like is my hand is at its side. I'm right-handed. So my thumb is pointing downwards. Here. I would actually draw in the full pen first. Or I would draw in the full pen. It's kind of hard actually to draw my finger while my pen while I am drawing. If you ever wanted to know what my stylus looks like while I draw, here you go. When you were young, I used to draw the pencil as a finger. Whoa. Sorry, I died for a second trying to picture that. So it's like you just kind of drew like the pencil as if it was just like an extension of the hand, or like as an actual finger that you would hold, which is kind of funny to be honest. When I was younger, I disregarded a lot of anatomy, so like I didn't really focus on stuff like that. And this finger kind of goes behind this one. And this one goes over top here. As an extra finger to hold. That's so funny. Like this, they've just like captured another finger to use. Yeah, so then this was kind of over top here. I have to rearrange all these fingers because it's like the angle of my pencil constantly changes. Yeah, and this one is behind here. Okay, kinda got it. And then I have a couple of fingers down here that are just these fingers bent. Yeah, hand holding a pencil is hard because there's a lot of different angles that you can do, and Google doesn't always have all of them, so you're just gonna have to rely on yourself to take an accurate an accurate reference photo. Suck at drawing straight lines. I still suck at drawing straight lines. I just know how to fake it. So it's kind of like that. A little messy, so I'll probably clean it up before I post it onto the Discord. But kind of like that. Oh, it's 5:36, so that means that we are kind of about a half hour left of the entire stream. So what that means is that it is time to talk a bit about our studio, because we are not just a YouTube channel. We are a school. We are an online art school, so if you would like to check out all of the classes that we offer, feel free to check out the description, links down below, where you can check out our website for all of our different classes and all the different things that we offer. And with this file, like I mentioned, this entire hand file will be available for you to download. You're going to be able to download the JPEG from our Discord, and we might post it onto our Instagram afterwards, where you can take a look at it. Links for all of those down below as well. But if you would like my working file, you are going to have to join our Patreon, where you can get access to all of my working files. Plus, you can get access to a critique that will be held with a lot of our instructors. And there's also going to be a limited time offer for our... Oh my god, there's going to be a limited time offer for all discounts on all of our classes. So make sure that you get those spots before they are gone, because they are limited in numbers. All right, let's get back to the drawing. Yes, the JPEGs will be yours. You can download them, keep them, do whatever you want with them. Well, don't repost them, but it's you can download them and keep them for reference if you would like. JPEGs are all yours. So that's a hand holding kind of a pencil. I mean, this is more of a stylus, but same deal. Yes, and all links that you will need can be found in the description. All right. Peace sign is very similar to this one. It's just you gotta move a finger over. Or you can bend these. You know what? I'll do it. So these two hands, kind of very, very similar. I don't know what I just did with the thumb there. But it's very similar to this one. All it really is just these two fingers now are going to be bent. Just to get that right, though, I'm going to draw this pinky bending first. So if you observe your own fingers bending, right, it kind of creates an X here, right, with the bending of your fingers. So you can apply that to actually drawing him, because there's 3 joints. Right, so it kind of creates an X with your fingers bending inwards. Your next finger will be a little bit taller than your pinky. And then you can just draw your 2 fingers. Again, because they're not bent, I'm not drawing any joints. I'm just drawing kind of a curved rectangle for the full hand. Right, but with your bent fingers, especially if you can see them from the sides, you can curl in your own fingers, and you notice that they create little X's on the sides. If you really want to get fancy, you can just draw on your segments of your fingers there as well. Just usually box this off a little bit more. Ah, and hands playing a piano. Piano hands. I used to play piano. I'm gonna have to make this large again. Larger height. Let's add another. 2000 pixels. Lots and lots of hands. Hand playing the piano. Hands playing the piano, it's like... It's like they kind of rest on there. Of course, you're going to have to draw the keys interacting with the fingers as well. I'm going to kind of do it from the top, just because I haven't done the back of a hand yet. It's just kind of, you're going to have to understand how they click the keys. If you have a piano, then that's even better. Then you can kind of look at how your hands play them. And this is where your nails will really come in handy. Because your nails are kind of indicators for... Your nails can kind of act as indicators for where your fingers are pressing down or not. So they'll most likely be curved downwards to match the finger bending if they are playing the key. And I'll mention it again, just if you didn't know, I am always looking at a reference off to the side, just because, in case if I get something wrong, I don't want that to happen. So, I got 2. So I look at references to make sure that I don't get anything extremely off. If I'm not 100% sure of what I'm doing. Because even though I am here to teach you, I am not, you know, the say-all-know-all, right? Take everyone's lessons with a grain of salt, no matter who you are learning from. Right, just because they're teaching you what works for them, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that it works for you. So I'm gonna have this hand kind of playing an octave, I think. Control T, please. Excusez-moi. Oh, it's because I have both of these selected. What the heck? So I'm not too certain what keys I'm playing here. Let's just pretend maybe he's doing like a C. I don't know, I haven't played piano in a really long time. Let's pretend that that's something cohesive. But yeah, from the top, you want to make sure that you're kind of bending the fingers the correct way to kind of show that you're playing a key. Alright. Hand playing a piano, alien hands. One of holding a pole or holding the handle of a sword. Now the thing with this one is that spears or swords or anything like that, depending on what kind of sword you're holding, there is actually very specific technique when it comes to like swords or spears, right? Everyone like there's a very specific way to hold them. So obviously, like, references are your best friend. But generally, when it comes to holding a sword, what you want is your So first of all, you want to draw in the actual pole or the sword hilt yourself first. So your hand has a guide. Let's pretend that this actually looks good. So let's do like a pommel, a nice looking pommel. Let's pretend that I actually know what any of the terminology for a sword is as well. Right, so say if it's like a broadsword, right? Or not a broad, like a longsword? Broadsword? Longsword. I'm thinking of Breath of the Wild. Say if it's like a big sword, right? Dual-handed sword. Right, you want your wrists to be quite straight when you're holding those, right? Spears, also you want your wrists to be straight, so they're strong and they're not bent and they don't have a chance to roll as easily. Right, so your thumb will go kind of on top. Or spin on top. That should be flatter. So hang on. I should make my eraser bigger as well. Because right now it's quite small. Yeah, it's better. Also, when you're drawing something where it's grasping something else, you want your entire hand to be drawn around it, right? So even if you can't see the back of the palm, while you're holding the sword, draw it in anyway so you have a reference point for where it would go. Right, that goes with everything. Right? You would curve all of your fingers around here. This is me bringing back the beans. So you've noticed I've been drawing a lot of the rectangles for all of these poses, but I'm bringing back the beans for this one. So it does depend on the angle that your fingers are holding this, but remember that your pinky should always be the shortest one. Should be the second longest. I'm also constantly making readjustments because sometimes you draw something and you're like, oh, that doesn't look right, so you gotta redo it. Always trust your gut when you're drawing something. If something doesn't look right, it most likely isn't. You'd be surprised how often you are correct. Especially as you get better at art, your intuition grows stronger. And always listen to your artistic intuition because it does tend to be correct. And then when in doubt, get a second opinion. Whether they're art friends or teachers or instructors or anything like that. So this one should be shorter. I'm also like turning my head to make sure. Right, so one hand would be very, very strong. Depending on how strong your grip is as well, you want to accentuate your knuckles. Right? Whenever they say it's a white-knuckled grasp, it means that the knuckles, well, they turn white because they're grasping it super, super hard. I'm just kind of fixing the thumbnails, the fingernails as well. Then the opposite direction. The pull you can make a little bit longer as well. Right? Well, I have to make it longer just because I didn't draw long enough. Right? Start with a thumb. Oh, hang on. I haven't scrolled down in the chat for a while. This stream is pretty handy. I get that. Honestly, this is very helpful. I'm glad. Sorry, I've had it scrolled up so I can see what the requests are. On my handy dandy second monitor that I've never had before, and now I do, and it's so strange, but also very, very useful. My best friend was like, once you have two dual monitors, you'll never want to go back. And I'm like, I already don't want to go back. This is so good. Yeah, then with this one, if it's a little bit stronger, a little stronger of a grip, then you're going to want to accentuate the knuckles that pop up as well. Don't forget your wrist. Especially with your wrist, if you're holding something very tightly, your wrist joint is really going to pop out because you're causing tension, right? You're flexing the muscles that you have, right? The muscles and the tension that are within whatever you're drawing. Right, you're most likely a little more tense. Even though I think you're supposed to hold a sword a little bit looser. Is looser a word? I don't think so. Oopsies. A little more loose. Yeah, with poles, with spears, stuff like that. This is kind of how you would hold them, right? Something very similar to that. This is pretty much the same for all swords and all spears and all poles, right? Because every other kind of nuance that comes with it is in the rest of the arm and the body position. So that's not what we're going over today. We're just going over hands. So make sure you keep that in mind. Okay, I lied. Maybe I won't be able to do every single request because I think I spent a little longer on some of them than I should have. Handle of a sword. Oh, hand with long nails. Okay. I'm gonna just do a very general hand pose. I can just use my own hand here. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, every nail, especially if it's natural, your nails will have will curve. Right? They'll curve inwards, but they'll also curve downwards. I'm gonna go with stiletto nails because those are my favorites. I really like nails, guys. If you couldn't tell. I'm a very big claw person. Again, claws are not really what you would use if you wanted to do like actual horror, as in like freaky horror, because claws are more for cool horror. This is me being very biased, by the way. You don't always have to listen to me, but like, for me, anime claws just tend to not be that scary. Of course, if you had somebody with claws coming at you and they were like running at you, then yeah, that's obviously gonna be scary. But like in terms of like you're watching a movie and you see somebody with claws, like a werewolf is probably a lot less scary than like something from Uncanny Valley, right? Bringing back my beans for this section. Like I mentioned, your nails generally do tend to curve downwards to follow. They continue the curve of the finger. Oh, here we go. Holding a sword is an important thing. I've had some troubles in the past with it. Yep. I just kind of came out of nowhere, but I have a question. Why using MediBang when you have Photoshop and Clip Studio Paint? Ah, yes. So I guess you can see my bar down there. But yes, all of our live streams are done in MediBang since it's free and accessible to everyone. So can I use Clip? Yes. Photoshop is my primary one, though. But I'm doing them in a free-to-use platform, so just for those who can't afford Clip or Photoshop, it's then you can kind of follow along with me and follow along with my digital art techniques. Would I use Photoshop if I could? Yes. But you know what? I'm okay with using this if it means that other people can follow along the streams a little bit easier. Maybe I should buy a sword to use as a reference. I mean, I've bought skulls to use as references, so go for it if you have the funds. Yes, I have actual animal skulls in my room. I use them. They are ethically sourced, do not worry. But I use them for references for art, mostly. No, that's all I use them for. The other, I say mostly because they're also like decoration. But, yeah, 99% of the time I just use them for art reference. Other times I use them because my students like to look at them and they're like, Jessie. It's like I'll bring up the skulls and they want to see the skulls again, and I'm like, okay, I'll bring out the skulls. I have 6, by the way. But 3 of them are fake and 3 of them are real. And 2 of them are the same type of bird. So all my fake ones are birds, and my real ones are mammals, mostly. Yeah, a branch also probably works for a pole. Claws are more terrifying than scary, that makes sense. Yeah, they're a little more, like, predatory, so they're scary in terms of, like, oh my gosh, there's a creature coming after me, but if you want something that's actually spooky, then I would just use regular human nails. Hi, hello, Paprick. We're almost done with the stream. So I didn't really get to render anything out, but that's fine. We're talking more about techniques than we are with rendering. All about hands. But yeah, long fingernails, make sure they curve. I'm thinking of Lady Dimitrescu right now when I draw these. Bro, she got Freddy Krueger hands, though. Very nice. Again, I was just kind of referencing off my own hand when doing that one. And just so there isn't this awkward space in the middle, I'm just going to draw a baby hand. Just so I can fill in this space, because I don't like leaving it open. I gotta go, but this is very nice. What's going on next stream? Next stream is feet, and I am glad that you could join. Thanks for popping in for this long. And yeah, next stream is feet anatomy, so we're gonna go over that, because that's another one that people tend to struggle with. Okay, I'm gonna do like 2 more, I think, and then we're good. Fully clenched. Okay, so a fist. And the spear, which I technically did already. Okay, so yeah, then the hand in a fist should be my last one then, and then we can sign off. Hand in a fist is quite simple. It's not too tricky. It's very easy just because you can reference your own hand. Can you do one holding a book? Yep. Okay, so then I guess I got 2 more. The fist is pretty easy, so it won't take that long. But the fist, I tend to start with my own, with the thumb, if I've clenched it inwards like this. Right, so the thumb tends to go over everything. Actually a space in between here. Yes, there's a little bit of a space in between there as well. Your nail over top. Right, and you can kind of draw each little clenched finger as a rectangle, but they will be going down in a slant. They shouldn't be perfectly straight across, right? They should be going downwards in a slant because each finger gets a little bit smaller. Right, and they all kind of angle inwards. Just slightly. When your fingers are when your hands are clenched, it's also very, this middle, like, thing is very, very pronounced. And don't forget your wrist. Especially because the hand is clenched, it's going to be quite pronounced, so you want to keep that in there. If you're wondering what this line is that I'm drawing every single time, it's a tendon that comes down onto your wrist. You can kind of, some people have it, some people don't. If you want to test if you have it, take your ring finger and kind of bring it down. Fold that one inwards. If you have it, then it's like, some people have it, some people don't. If you don't have it, it means you've like evolved to not have one, as far as I know. Okay, and a hand holding a book, so this will be my last one. It's 6:01, but I can do one more. So a hand holding a book, again, it's one of those ones where it's like you got so many angles that you gotta work with, and like... Hand holding a book. Hands holding a book, it's like you got a bunch of angles that you can work with, and like a lot of different ways that you can show people holding a book, because people tend to hold books a little bit differently. I'll show you the way that I hold a book. People hate it. But I'll also do the hand on the outside as well, so this is going to be another back of the hand drawing. Just like anything that has a prop, most of the time, if the prop is bigger than the hand, then draw the prop first, and then draw the hand. Right, so let's say that we have the book here first. So the thumb is going to be on the inside, so you don't actually have to draw it completely, just maybe a little hint of it. And for me, I like to have 2 of my fingers on one side of the book, and then the other 2 fingers on the other side of the book. Which is like a really unnatural position, but that's how I tend to hold books. Right, kind of like that. It's a very dramatic pose, I guess. Right, you notice that I didn't draw any extra shapes for this one. It's just because I kind of have that memorized. We should kind of keep that in mind. And keep the curves of your fingers in mind, because this is a little bit foreshortened. It's not crazy, but it is a little bit foreshortened. So again, nails, very, very important. And doing that. And the hand is a little bit stressed, so you're going to want the knuckles in there when you draw them. And the thumb won't really be visible because it will be covered by the book itself. So again, very dramatic way to hold a book, but unfortunately that's how dramatic my fingers are. This might be a topic. Do you know how to draw broken body parts? I mean, most of the time they're just in casts, so if you know how to draw a cast, then you can probably draw that. Other than that, no, not really. I don't have a lot of experience with that. But hi, Rafif. Unfortunately, that's actually the end of the stream. But thank you so much for popping in, even though this is all complete. But like I mentioned earlier, yes, thank you so much everyone for joining in. Like I mentioned earlier, that we are not only a YouTube channel, but we are actually an art studio. So if you would like to check out all the classes that we offer and everything else that we offer, rather than only these YouTube live streams, then feel free to check out our website. That is in the link down below. And if you'd like to check all the extra links that we have in the description to our social media, so if you would like to download this entire file's JPEG, it is yours. You can download it, you can keep it. It will be uploaded to our Discord, and it will also be posted to our Instagram, so you can take a look at both of them there. But if you would like my working file, you are going to have to go onto Patreon and become a member. So that's where all of my That's where all of my working files will be, and we'll also have critique sessions, which you can join if you are a part of certain tiers. And there is also certain tiers that will allow you to get discounts on all of our classes. So, but those are in limited numbers. So if you would like to take advantage of that, then make sure that you do it pretty soon before they run out. But yeah, thanks so much for joining, everyone. That is the end of the stream. Thank you for coming. Next week we are going to be doing feet, so make sure that you join in for that, and I'll be going over more basics of feet, because I find that for me anyway, feet tend to be a little bit trickier than hands are. Because we focus so much on hands that we forget to focus on those. But yeah, thanks so much for joining, guys. I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye!